Welcome back, my book-loving friends. I'm Reagan, and welcome to my channel, Pages Rediscovered. I wanted to show you my haul. This is my haul video. The first video I made, I took you to one of my favorite thrift stores, and I found some exciting things. I didn't find as much as I thought I did. I don't know if you do this when you go thrifting. You might find one thing that you're really excited about and you feel like you have found a treasure trove of books, and then you get home and realize, oh, I only found like a handful of things. So that's kind of what happened here. So I don't have a ton to share with you, but I did want to go over some of the books that I did purchase and why I purchased them. So I think I'm ready to begin. I have my handy dandy notebook. I have my reheated coffee. It's been reheated multiple times already today, mom life. So let's get started. First of all, I bought just a paperback of Now We Are Six. I think most of you are probably familiar with A.A. Milne, and he is the author, of course, of the Winnie the Pooh books. And I picked this one up because my friend has been looking for these books, so when I see them, I grab them. It's one thing I love about thrifting, and I just get to find things for my friends, for people I know if they're looking for something they know to ask me. So that's always fun that I can find things for them, discover things that they need, and I can pick them up and they can save money, and I can also rescue these books. That's the other part that I'm really excited to do, is rescue these books, because a lot of the times they will end up in the trash can or a recycle bin, and if I can find something that someone is looking for, then that saves that book from that tragic end. So, okay, my next book I picked up, Mickey's Magnet. This book, it is a paperback, it's very thin. If you are Harold in the Purple Crayon fan, you will probably recognize the illustration on this cover, and that is what grabbed my attention. I've never heard of this book. I don't know the author, but I do, of course, know the illustrator. Harold and the Purple Crayon was one of my favorite books when I was younger. So anytime I find a book that is illustrated by Crockett Johnson, I grab it. So a couple of things about Crockett Johnson that I did not realize, that is actually his pen name. His real name is David Johnson Leask, I believe is how you pronounce that. And he actually became famous for writing a comic strip called Barnaby, and that was published around in the 40s. He also was married to another prolific children's author, and her name was Ruth Krauss, and he collaborated with her on a few books. One of the probably most well-known books that you might be familiar with is The Carrot Seed, and of course it has his trademark characters, illustrations. This book, I did read it because it's very short, but it's such a neat book. I think it would be wonderful for younger kids who are learning about magnets, and it's about this little boy, and he has spilled his mother's pens, like needles, all over the floor. So he tries to find different ways to pick these pins up, but there's so many. And finally his dad says, how about you try this horseshoe magnet? And so he becomes fascinated with this horseshoe magnet, how easy it is to pick up all the pins, and then starts to wonder, what else can I pick up with this magnet? So he goes around the house and tries different things, and it's really a great book about curiosity, about inspiring wonder, and about a kid discovering things on his own without his parents directing the way or a teacher directing the way, but rather they give him the tools and he's able to go and discover for himself some of these really neat scientific principles involving magnets. So I think this is definitely a worthy book. It's not big. It is a paperback, which I don't mind. So yes, I was glad to find that one, and it was a fun little read. So the other book that I found, and you guys saw me pick this one up, this is Heroes of the Faith series, and this one is Corrie ten Boom. Now, I'm not familiar with the Heroes of the Faith series of biographies, but it looked like a good series, and as I was searching, I found another one, and the one that I found was C.S. Lewis, and I love C.S. Lewis, so of course I decided to grab this one as well. I just read a couple of snippets out of the one from C.S. Lewis, and I felt like it was a pretty well-written biography from just the couple of lines that I did read. So I think they probably are worthy of being in your library. You might find that it kind of varies from each person. Each biography might be a little different, but they are the heroes of the faith biographies of stories of courageous believers and throughout history, and they are recommended for readers age 12 and up. It kind of reminds me of the YWAM biography series, the Christian Heroes Then and Now, I think is what they are called. I do have a stack of those, and those are kind of hit and miss too. We read the George Mueller biography, and I loved that biography so much. And then there were a couple of other ones, I can't remember off the top of my head which one it was, but they were a little bit more on the dry side. So again, it just sort of is a hit and miss thing, but I do think they're worthy. And this particular series, Heroes of the Faith, I will probably hang on to those and read them and see what I think about them, if I'm going to keep them or if I'm going to pass them along or try to sell them. So this next book I grabbed as well, and you did not see me grab it. It is called The Left-Handed Book. And I don't know if you can see right here, it says a first book. Do this here. And it is by Ray Lindsay, not an author I'm familiar with. However, I did grab it because there is a wonderful series called The First Book. And this one is not, I don't believe it's part of that series. It is a first book. So I was a little confused. I tried to do some research, but I just could not come up with an answer for why, if this is a separate series called a first book series. It is published by Franklin Watts, which is also the publisher of the first book series. So I'm going to show you, I do happen to have, this is one that I have owned. It's in my personal library back here, but I grabbed it because I wanted you to compare it for you. This is, see, the first book. So on a lot of different topics, the first book of time, there's back here in the back, there's a whole list of different books in this series. So there's the first book of glass, the first book of ancient Greece, the first book of poetry, the first book of codes and ciphers. I mean, there's a whole birth of topics that the first book series addresses. And this one was published, I think it was in the 60s, late 60s. And this one was published in the 80s. So this is a newer one. Obviously, it would not be in that list. I don't know. Do you guys know? It's the same size book, same shape. But I grabbed this because my dad is left-handed. My Grammy was left-handed. And I remember a story my Grammy told me. When she was younger and learning how to write, they would force her as a left-hander to write with her right hand. I don't understand the history of that, of why it was such a bad thing to write with your left hand, but she remembered that and it stuck with her, and she said to herself that she would never, force that on any of her children because it was so, I don't want to say painful, but I just remember her discussing it, and it was just, I don't know, it kind of takes away a part of your personhood because this is just what my body wants to do, is to write with my left hand, and you're telling me that it's wrong, that something is wrong with me and I have to change and adjust and instead write with my right hand to be, normal. So I grabbed this left-handed book because, for that, but also as I look through, I just thought it looks to be really encouraging for left-handed children. It lists different famous people who were left-handed in history and more recent. It also, I don't know, it's very encouraging. And then at the back, let me see if I can find it for you. It gives, for further reading, I love this, for further reading. And it gives a list of different books that left-handers might be interested in, or southpaws, right? That's what left-handies or lefties are called. So I just thought that this was such a neat book because it was encouraging, and that kind of was different than what my Grammy experienced. So yeah, so I grabbed that one. Again, a first book, I'm not familiar with that. Tell me, is it the same as the first book? I don't know. Okay, moving on. You saw me pick this one up. This is a Cornerstones of Freedom book. I find these often. Now, there are lots of different variations of these books because they're published in different times. So this is one you can tell it's not glossy. There are some that are newer. The newer prints have that glossy cover, and typically they're white. These are really beautiful. It's a double pictorial cover, and it also is this stripe series. So it has the pictorial image on the front, and as well it has it on the back. These are just good books. They're usually about like 30 or so pages long. I honestly have not read one yet, but I do have a few. I haven't decided if I'm going to collect them and keep them in my library or not, but I know a lot of homeschoolers especially really like these. They are just little overviews of different parts of history, and it's really comprehensive from what I gather. If you want to know more about this, there's more information at Valerie's Living Library, and I will try to link that in the description box below so that if you guys want to go check it out, she has some good information about this series. But I was struck because for some reason I decided to look up this author. Kenneth Richards is his name. And I looked up his information, and it turns out that he is also responsible for writing a series or authoring part of a series called People of Destiny series. And that is a biography series where it's another one published by Children's Press, which Children's Press also published Cornerstones of Freedom. And, sorry, my 3-year-old wanted to be on camera. So back to Cornerstones of Freedom. So this is published by Children's Press, but also this other series that Kenneth Richards authored partly, the People of Destiny series, was also published by Children's Press. Now, the little bit of research that I could do, I could not discover what age range they were for. I would say that Cornerstones of Freedom, and I think Valerie's Living Library talks about what age range, but probably, I mean, any elementary age would be fine. Maybe a little bit mid-elementary. So I don't know People of Destiny series, but some of the biographies included in that series are Winston Churchill, Helen Keller, Babe Ruth. So there's a lot of interesting people in this series. I have never seen one in person. This is the first time I've heard of that series, but I thought I'd mention it because it sounds interesting, and I'm always fascinated to find new series that I'm not familiar with, and especially biographies. I don't know why, I just love biographies, even though I don't read enough of them myself. I should, and maybe I'll pick one up next. But, okay, moving on. Okay, so this is Zoom, and it is a Russian tale, and I just grabbed it because the illustrations really struck me. I am a sucker for good illustrations on picture books, and the author, Diane Wolkstein, well, she is the one who retold the folktale here in this book, and she is a folklorist, and she wrote another book that I happen to have in my library, and I didn't recognize her name at all, but it's Esther's Story, and that book I got because it was recommended in a Truthquest history guide. So if you're a homeschooler, particularly a Charlotte Mason homeschooler, but really any type of homeschooler at all, the Truthquest history guides are phenomenal. They are, not only are they great for their own merit, but one reason why a lot of people really love them is because they are an extensive book list of wonderful, lovely living books. So I do have some And I have used those as resources when I'm looking for books, and Esther's story is one that I purchased because of that. And then I just happened to find this book and realize that it is the same author. Here is just an example of the illustrations. She is not the illustrator. The illustrator, his name is Dennis McDermott. I'm not familiar with him as well. Just love these illustrations. Picked it up. So that is all about that book. Oh, and the tale is about the king's archer meets a beautiful woman. They fall in love. He marries her. Her name is Olga. She's kind of magical. The king meets her, and he decides he wants her for himself. So he, along with the help of the witch Baba Yaga, they kind of scheme to try and get Olga for himself. So that's kind of the premise of this folk story. Okay, so just a couple more things. That's not the last thing, but the last thing that I got at this thrift store was, I was excited about this, the Around the World program. It is by the American Geographical Society, and it came in a cool slip case here. So you just push it out. Mine is a little bit, it's in a little bit rough condition, you can see here. But mine came with 4 little books. And I have seen these. I have seen people post them and talk about them, but I have never actually seen them myself in person. So when I saw them finally, I was very excited because they are lovely. Just the covers alone. How can you not love that? I love it. So they are rather thin. Now, this program was published, I think, originally in the 50s and 60s. And this one, I believe there's one that was made specifically for schools, and it says on there, school program, I believe. This one does not say anything about school program. I think it would say somewhere here. I don't know, from what I could tell. This one does not. These do not. But from what I could gather, I was looking up to try and see how many there are. There are a lot of these. As you can imagine, it's around the world. There are a lot of countries. There are a lot of places to visit around the world. So I have 4, and I found a list. I don't know if it's a comprehensive list. It seemed to be pretty comprehensive, but I counted about 77 total of these. So that is quite a collection of books. I don't know if I will start to actively collect these or not, but they are really neat. So they're basically just little, I don't want to say pamphlets, but about different countries. They just have little tidbits, information about the country. So I have Venezuela, I have France, I have the Bahamas. My daughter is jumping up and down in a box. That is that noise in the background. And then finally I have this one, Scandinavian countries. So all of my other books, all the other ones, Bahamas, France, and Venezuela, the stamps have been used. But I was excited to flip through this one, and you can see how it comes when they're not used. It is just kind of like a section in the middle where all of these, I'm calling them stamps. They call it a label for album case. I don't know. They're stamps, they're stickers, whatever they are. They're in the middle here. So these have not been used. So I was excited to find that. So yeah, that was kind of like the part where I got really excited about my find, and so I felt like I just got like this great haul of books, which I mean I did get some good books, but typically not not a lot compared to what I can come home for. The other neat thing about this program here, the Around the World program, is it came in this box and it has all this original like ephemera with it. So it was to order Nancy Drew books and become part of the Nancy Drew book club. So I thought that was kind of neat. You can mail this card to get the beautiful Nancy Drew Readers Club volume for only 10 cents. I would love to get books for 10 cents. And actually, I do get books for 10 cents at thrift stores, which is why I go to thrift stores. Not all the time are they 10 cents, but a lot of times they are, so it's phenomenal. Now, that is the last book from the thrift store that I took you to in my previous video, and I will put that link to that in the description box below as well if you want to watch that. But I did get to go yesterday, and I did not find hardly anything. I went to, I think, 3 separate places to look for books yesterday, and it was like a desert. There was just nothing worth getting, except I did find this book, and it is a newer book, How to Make a Cherry Pie and See the USA. Now, some of you might be familiar with her other book, How to Make an Apple Pie and See the World, and this is the same premise, except this time we are making a cherry pie, and we are going across the USA to find all the different ingredients and to find the different tools and supplies we need in order to make our cherry pie. So it is a sweet book. I highly recommend both of them. They're just fun, and especially if you have a child who loves to bake, it's a fun thing where you can bake the pie, read the book, make it an experience, and that's what reading books with your children should be. So that is it, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that you will come back for my next thrift with me video when I go find more books, hopefully. And thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Bye.